Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Today is August the 1st in the year of our Lord, 2023. We want to start off this podcast tonight. I would like to have a moment of silence for my aunt, Ella Grace Oglesby. Okay, here we are at Soluble. Rest in peace, Aunt Grace. Yes, my mom's oldest sister. We lost a good one, a giant. No nonsense, but a very loving heart at the same time. Rest in peace, Aunt Grace. So, beginning with today's broadcast, of course, all things Washington, all things politics, and trying to solve, and trying to solve. In between, each podcast, we're thinking, we're pondering, we're trying to come up with a way to bridge the partisan divide. I mean, the things that we talk about here are eye-opening. Whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or Independent, we try to have things that are eye-opening, revealing. Because we feel like a great way or a great part of solving political conflict is having knowledge of what's going on, being able to look at it from multiple sides of the spectrum, multiple sides of the coin, if you will, in order to come up with a solution. At the end of the day, a way to solve and get meaningful legislation passed for the American people. That keeps America at the forefront of all things good in this world. Now, we're less than 20, we're right at 22 days away from the first Republican debate. 22 days. Now, we here at Soluble, we have to take it where the process presents itself, where we're at in this point in time in history in politics. And shockingly, sadly, the former president is in the lead by all polling indicators. On the Republican side, he's the leading horse right now, if you will, as far as to be the nominee to run against President Biden. So, as I said, we have to take it from where it's at. This is not something that we're just using the former president for a punching bag. He's in it to win it. You can do that in this great democracy. You can even possibly serve, out a presidential term from behind jail bars. We don't know, but that's the great thing about the democracy. He's in it to win it. So, the former president is where it's at. He's the target, as well as President Biden. Because, we would be foolish here at Soluble to think that we can solve it by only looking at it from one side. There's good and bad in Republican ideas and Republican policies. There's some good and bad in Democratic policies. But when it comes to the Republicans, it seems as if it's getting more and more murkier in the water to find these good policies, these good things that they want to do for America. Excuse me. Now, right now, where we're currently at in American politics in this point in time. Now, keep in mind, and we're going to keep, stressing this going into the next election. Here we are as a country, 247 years old. America. Founded in genocide, made in slavery. We're 247 years in. We're not technically a quarter of the way to a millennia. And it seems as if, we're repeating a lot of the mistakes from the past. It's like we can't move forward because the past keeps getting in the way. And so, how things have majorly come about now is that, we've had the first African American president in American history, and then all of a sudden the past comes back. Where we think we're moving forward, we're reminded more of the past with a MAGA type mentality, with a Make America Great Again ideology that seems to take us back in a lot of ways as far as societal norms, if you will. Now, we're going to give the former president, credit where it's due, where he's done good at, as far as the economy, as far as foreign policy, as far as climate change, or gun violence, the border. If he's done good, we're going to point that out. We're going to give the former president credit where it's due. Now, this may shock some of you, coming from, us here at Soluble, but we're rooting for the former president to win at the end of the day, regardless of party. He is, president of the United States of America. And at Soluble here, you would think that the way that, we use them as a punching bag every chance we get when it comes to facts, keep in mind. We're doing this, yes. But at the end of the day, we're rooting for the former president to win. Because when he wins, America wins. And, with all the indictments coming down, watching the president on the campaign trail, he's given us nothing here at Soluble. He's given us nothing that we can sink our teeth into, that we can root for. And it's painstaking. It's painstaking, to sit and watch the president, run for office that, he's so wholly unqualified for. Such a flawed human being for this job, for this office. Now, as of today, going into the first Republican debate, which will be August the 23rd, the Republicans have a slim majority in the House, and Democrats control 2/3 of government. So, putting our heads together, all ideals, all hands on deck type of situation we're in, where we need, anyone or all ideals to come forward. I mean, can we vote our way out of this? Yes, we've done it before. We've done it in 2020. We voted our way out. But is that the total solution? Yes, that puts Democrats in office. Yes, that may give us a supermajority in Congress, which would be a great thing, which a footnote, it would go a long way in solving. But integrity in government is, sorely lacking right now. And it's not a partisan reach, or it's not a partisan jab to say that the vast majority of it is coming from the right. I mean, let's look at this thing for what it is. We have two competing narratives here. Two competing narratives on two different people. Now, first and foremost, there was a time in politics where family was off limits, especially children, when it came to campaign politics or being out on the campaign trail running against your opponent. There was a time, and we can bring this back by sending a message at the ballot box in 2024. But there was a time not too long ago in America where the children of a president or a presidential candidate was off limits to attacks. But here we are. Here we are. And, the two competing narratives involving two different people coming from two opposing parties. Now, in one corner, you have a former president of the United States. And in the opposing corner, you have Hunter Biden, the son of the current president of the United States. Now, the former president has come under fire. He's a walking indictment machine right now. Legitimately, they have him on tape. They have witnesses who have come forward. They have, whistleblower sources. It's coming out in the courts right now about all the lack of evidence, all the people who tried to tell the former president that the election was not rigged or stolen. But yet here we are with all the things that we have affecting the country today, positive or negative. Positive that can be made even more positive, and negative that can be turned into negatives. Negative that can be turned into positive. Of all the things that we have going on in America today, this is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. And so, of course, we're looking for a solution in the whole scheme of things. We're dogged and determined. Now, in this corner where we have the former president, a former leader of the free world, holding an office of prestige. The former president took an oath to protect and defend. Swore an allegiance. Took an oath to serve the Constitution. The former president privy to all top secret classified information, nuclear codes. Taking an oath that pretty much sums up the requirements of the job, what his expected duties, the way he should, to a certain extent, carry himself while in office. This is the person that the American government, whether it be in the Justice Department, on any state level, Georgia, for instance, New York, for instance, have decided, after looking at all the evidence, that the former president should be brought up on charges. Some will say, based on his description of it, witch hunts. In the opposing corner, you have, as I said, Hunter Biden, the son of the current president that is sitting in office now. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, we don't think here at Soluble, to figure out which of these two men have the potential to do the most damage to this democracy, to the United States of America. It shouldn't take a genius, a high IQ that's exploding off the charts, to look and see who can be the most clear and present danger here. Hunter never took an oath of office. Hunter never swore an allegiance. Hunter was never privy to, top secret information, complete with nuclear codes. Hunter Biden was not tasked with being the leader of the free world for a full term until said term expires. But yet here we are. These are the two competing narratives. Now, you had on yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, you had Hunter, some of his business partners called up on the Hill to testify that, as to what was going on in these meetings. Supposedly, he was sitting in a meeting. President Biden was on the phone. He was doing some serious influence peddling. This was the prevailing thought or the prevailing narrative up until the testimony yesterday of said business partners who now testified that Hunter used the illusion. Let's get this straight. Hunter used the illusion of being a Biden or an illusion of, the power he had as a Biden. You would think that, this would be the end of it. This is testimony from people who were in the room, people who were business partners. And they're saying that, it basically boils down to Hunter sitting in a room, Hunter's in a meeting, and, things may begin to not go his way in said meeting. And then all of a sudden, Hunter says, well, now, do you know who my father is? And that's the extent of it. That's the extent of it. Trying to use the name of Biden from his father, who has a career as a senator and now vice president and now president of the United States. The most he did was try to use the name Biden to gain an advantage, to gain influence. And some kind of way in all of this melodramatics, Republicans are foolish enough to think that we, as American citizens, should tie this to a possible impeachment of the current president. This is grounds for impeachment. Now, you would think this would be the final straw. These are the business partners who are in the room, who are actually in the room when these conversations are happening. And they've said, based on their testimony under oath, that he used the power of illusion as a Biden. Their words, not ours here at Soluble. We're taking it somewhat out of context. It's not quoted verbatim, but that's pretty much what it turns out to be. That he was in a meeting, whether it be, expecting a check, expecting a business deal to go through, expecting to gain an upper, hand financially in a meeting, whatever. Hunter Biden, we know, was in this meeting. And when things may have looked gloomy for him or looked like they may not be going his way, then he brought up the name Biden as a reminder to these business associates that, he comes from a name of power. And that's basically it. That's basically it. Will it end there? Now, as we stated before, and we can't help but to state it again, because we feel like we can't overemphasize it. Of all the things that are going on in the country today, this is what the Republicans are doing with their majority, which, if you go back and listen and look, we've already said it before the midterms of 2022, that if they gain an advantage, if they gain a majority, then it was going to be investigation and no legislation. We're dealing with wind damage, fire damage, water damage, from coast to coast, from sea to shining sea. We got a gun violence epidemic in the country. We need to work on, women's rights. We need to work on Medicaid, Social Security. What are we going to do about these things? Whether we're going to underfund them, not fund them. We got China chomping at the bits, wanting to be us, wanting to supplant us as a country. And the best thing that the Republicans can do right now with their majority is go on a fishing expedition to catch the current president, which is the big fish. But all they're catching is Hunter. Now, you would think that they would throw him back after the testimony of his business associates who were in the room. You would think that they would throw Hunter back, this small fish. and get on with the business of the American people? It remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. Meanwhile, and we're not going to go into partisan politics here. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole that the Republicans want us to follow them down. Our position here at Sawyer was that the Justice Department is doing its job. These state prosecutors, these state judges, some of them who've been put on the bench by the former president. And we're not here to say, oh, these are Trump judges, as he did when he was in office, talking about these are Obama judges. This solves nothing. We have to be the bigger party here. But just a reminder to show you that there can't be any ill will towards the former president. There's no biases here. There's no witch hunt. How can you take and seat a conservative judge? Seat a conservative judge. And the judge makes a ruling based on the evidence in front of him, based on the law. And you can say that, it's a witch hunt. There's nothing there. We got a long ways to go. To my fellow Democrats, we've done it before and we can do it again. The numbers have to be there. We have to get, up. We have to get ready. The current president has his sleeves rolled up every day, doing his job for the American people. And, it is what it is. This is two different parties with two different ideologies as to the direction that America should go. One is for the working class, building the economy from the working class out. One is for the wealthy, the ultra wealthy, and creating an economy where things begin to trickle down, a trickle down type economics for the middle class and the working everyday working people of America. We've seen this movie before. We've seen it crash the economy before, with CEOs laughing all the way to the bank. Main Street having to bail out Wall Street. Now, you have the Justice Department, the FBI, as I said, governments, prosecutors at the state level, judges at the state level. And in reviewing the evidence, they have found that the evidence is sufficient enough to bring forth charges. That's what it is, plain and simple. This is no two-tier justice. And as I've said before, it's dumb. It's dumb of the Republicans to come with the same approach. But it's even dumber for you as the American people to fall for it. We're not trying to, sway Republican voters or change any mind. If you would like to come on the podcast and debate and bring your point of view, we welcome it. We're not here to say that, the Democrats are the saving grace for America. That's not what we're doing here. So, we welcome multiple points of view, whether it's independent, Democrats, Republicans, what have you. But, the fundamental question that we have to ask ourselves as Americans is this: what good is living in a country where we have a robust democracy, and everything is good as far as money is concerned? Everything is good economically, as far as getting money is concerned. Jobs, low gas prices, what have you, But what good is all that money, all those good prices, if we don't have a functioning democracy? And that's what's at stake here. That's what's under threat. here in America today. On this day of August the 1st in the year of our Lord 2023. That's what's at stake. And still by numbers for a country, 247 years as a functioning democracy. And it seems as if we're imploding. It seems like we're unraveling at the seams. Nowhere near close to a millennia. And we're stuck in a rut here. The Democrats, we have to hold them accountable as Democratic voters. But when we look at it, and not just at the current state of play right now, what has, excuse me, look at all the past investigations that Republicans have bought. What meaningful charges have come about? On what? On which charges? On what case? Whitewater, Rosewater, Benghazi, the emails, the private server. What have we got? And now on top of that, Hunter Biden. What have we got from all of these Republican investigations, which we told you was going to come to pass once they gain a majority in the midterm? What have we gotten? Where are the convictions when we look back? Where is that aha moment where we're able to say, it's a good thing that the Republicans saw that coming and helped the country dodge that bullet with that corrupt Democrat, or with that Democrat, doing such underhanded things? Where is it at? When have we had that aha moment to be able to let out a sigh of relief that we're glad that the Republicans were on top of things and stop this destructive Democrat or this destructive liberal before, this thing got out of hand? There's nothing when we look back at it. Paula Jones, Whitewater, the Rose Law Firm, Benghazi, where is it? And if it hasn't come into pass, and we've heard the testimony of the business associates that were in the room, and this is Dumb and Dumber. Our hearts go out to Republican voters. Because the Republicans are investigating round and round and round in circles. And the best thing that we can get out of it, as far as the American people, the best results that they could bring us thus far is a semen stain on a blue dress? Is that it? What a waste of taxpayers' money. What a waste of taxpayers' money. And here we are. Once again, as I said, going into the president's family. Now, this is desperation. This is desperation. Can we solve it? Yes, by showing up to vote. Deep down, the Republicans know that the country is really left of center. They'll argue all day that it's right of center and try to make it the case that the country is right of center, but it's not. It only goes right of center when we as Democrats don't show up. Then it drifts right of center. And we see what it looks like with minority rule because we haven't shown up. But it's not right of center. It's left of center. And they know that. Deep down, they know that. They'll never say it. You would never hear the Republicans say that the country is left of center. And we're working hard to win back the American people, gain their confidence, gain their trust, and put the country back right of center where it should be. You'll never hear them say that. You'll see them try to, stymie the vote, take away your right to vote, make it harder to vote. You have to have more requirements to vote. They come up with all kinds of tactics to take away felons' right to vote. People who served their time and paid their due to society, paid their debts to society. They still don't want them to vote. But yet the country is right of center. If the country was right of center, folks, the Republicans would not have to be, coming with all these shenanigans and tactics to try to suppress the vote. They wouldn't have to lie. There would have to be such a thing as a January the 6th. If the country was right or center. So they know it. But what we have to do as Democrats is not get discouraged. We have to rally behind our candidate, even though, you know, that sound is constantly pounding, you know, inside of our head, because the Republicans are, you know, they're pounding it. It's Joe, it's Hunter, it's Joe, it's Hunter, nothing else, nothing on policy. You know, they talk about Bidenomics, and you know, most leading economists say, you know, the economy is trending in the right direction. We don't expect it to happen overnight. You know, prices at the grocery store, you know, they're still a little high by most accounts. I would have to agree with that. You know, when I'm in there, I see that, you know, things have changed. So, I mean, there's still work to be done. But as I said before, the president still has his sleeves rolled up. You're not seeing the president constantly on the golf course. And it has nothing to do with age. It has nothing to do with age. The president has his sleeves rolled up, trying to handle the business of the everyday American people, which is what a president should be doing. So, as I said, Democrats, you know, we have to stay on our P's and Q's. We did it before, and we can do it again. The former president has no plan for America. How do we solve it? That's what we're here for. That's what Soluble is all about, trying to come up with a solution. Now, as I said, the former president could be good in on certain aspects of the economy, foreign policy. Bring it forth. Let it be shown. Talk about it. Right now on the campaign trail, the president seems mostly to talk about his indictments. He's talking about the prosecutors. They're coming after him because, you know, he's standing in the way. Or they're coming after us, but he's in the way. He's in the way protecting us. And so, you know, therefore the government is coming after him. It's a witch hunt because he's protecting the American people and he's standing in the way. He's, you know, there with the cape on, ready to defend, you know, all of these witches that the government has coming for him. I mean, it's really a sad time, you know, in Republican politics now, that the former president, of all the damage and undermining that he's done, he's the leading candidate for the nomination for president of the Republican Party. And so we have to push back and be ready. And as of now, as of the way it stands now, that's it. The leading candidate for the Republican nomination for president of the United States is talking more about his legal troubles than he is what he can do for you or me, the American people. Imagine this. In the 247th year of our nation, of our young nation, here we've elected a president where, for the first time in history, it's more or less all about him and not country first. So, you know, there's no time to be alarmed. The American people are well versed. They're not slow to catch on. We know that you're paying attention as well as we here at Soluble are. When the former president starts to talk about what he'll do if elected president, he's reading. He's reading off of a script. His eyes are down. His head is down. It's all scripted. You would think by now, going at it for the third time, he could, just look you straight in the eye. Look at the camera. This is one of the advantages you have here in dealing with Soluble. We're not scripted. We're bringing you the facts, straight out of the head, straight out of the heart, as best we know how to. As best we know how. But here you have the president scripted. Is this coming from the heart? And, by all means, it's done from both sides of the aisle. It's done from both sides of the aisle. But we as Democrats, we feel as if, we can press our candidates, press our elected officials, and, get results. For example, the Supreme Court has struck down the president's wish to cancel student debt, and the president is working on a way around the Supreme Court. And rightfully so. He's working on a way around the Supreme Court. So, that's Joe. Roll up your sleeves and try to get the job done, Joe. Constantly trying to do the will of the American people. How do we solve it? The bitterness is in politics. We have to vote it out. First and foremost, we have to vote it out. And here you have a party with, elected officials or people running for office, and they don't want to go quietly. They don't want to play by the rules. From the former President Trump begat George Santos. And when he came under fire for, all his misleading statements, all the falsehoods that are coming out of his records, he says it's a witch hunt. And so I know as Democrats, just like us here at Soluble, we've asked ourselves, and I know you've asked yourself, is this the best that the Republican Party can do? I mean, and by contrast, what are we doing as Democrats? We have to be more vocal with our message. We have to be more forceful, first and foremost. But when it comes to corruption, when it comes to underhandedness, when it comes to bribes, anything of the sort, we're holding officials accountable. We're holding officials accountable. So in order to solve it, we here at Soluble, we have to call out the right for not doing the same thing. The president is pretty much doubling down. And as I stated before, when you have these Democratic candidates or elected officials who are caught with their hand in the cookie jar in some kind of way, they step down, which is the right thing to do. Step down on behalf of doing what's best for the country. And that's what Democrats are doing. So this is not a one-sided love affair here. If the Democrat is there and he's guilty, he's going to be dealt with. Whenever and wherever you've seen it pop up, it's been dealt with, so we don't see it on the left. Case in point, and it's been a while back, Blagojevich. Remember the good old, if I'm not mistaken, the governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He's sitting up there in a high seat of power. Former President Obama wins the election. And there's a vacant seat there. And all of a sudden, Blagojevich, thinking of the historical context of filling the seat of the first Black president of the United States, he wants something. He fails to realize that this is the people's house. This is the people's seat. This is not your personal seat. It's for you to seek personal gain, in a way of saying like, well, if you want this seat, if you want me to fill this seat with your name or your behind in it, then I want something for it. What happened? Blagojevich wound up behind bars. This is case in point. This is an example of Democrats holding elected Democratic officials responsible. Blagojevich served his time. Menendez in New Jersey, he was under investigation. He paid the cost. Senator Franken stepped down at the height of the Me Too movement. When women were coming forward with stories of harassment, rape, in everyday life, in job setting, Senator Franken stepped down. So we don't see it on the left. We don't see it, or when we do see it, it's dealt with. So the American people can, breathe a somewhat sigh of relief and say, okay, democracy works, the system works, the system of checks and balances works. Ask the former Governor Blagojevich. He'll tell you it works. He was caught red-handed. He didn't double down. He stepped down. He had no choice. But he did a responsible thing. He never cried witch hunt. He never cried this is fake news. He never cried this is election interference. Nothing. He did the honorable thing and stepped down. Now, as I said earlier, in these two competing narratives, Hunter versus the president is the one who swore to an oath. This means everything in gaining entrance to the Oval Office. This means everything. This is required before you step across the threshold. And he's a serious threat to democracy. And all the Republicans can do is still rally around him. Still rally around him, saying it's unfair. Bringing up the fact that, Hillary Clinton got away. Got away with what? Comey was there. Comey was the FBI director. They had the Justice Department. But they did not prosecute because there was nothing there. And they knew it. It was just a ruse. A classic ruse, fear-mongering out of the Republican playbook to smear Hillary and cost her the election. Now, fast forward, Trump's been in the White House. He's out of the White House. He's under indictment. And all the Republicans can do when it comes to being responsible and stepping up and asking someone to step down is to reach back and blame Hillary or to say it's a two-tier system with two competing narratives that are like comparing apples to oranges. Hunter Biden has never held elective office. To our knowledge here at Soluble, Hunter Biden has never held elected office or been an elected official of any kind, in any capacity. But, to let the Republicans tell it, he's a serious threat along with his father. They're co-conspirating, and it had to be stopped. It has to be stopped. Dumb and Dumber. Now, it would be our hope and desire that the American voter will leave Republicans to their own mischievousness here and be dumb by themselves. But here we are. With these two competing narratives. A man who's never held elected office versus someone who is a clear and present danger, who's held the highest elected office in the land, played fast and loose with classified material. And the Republicans are asking the Democrats to clean up their house. It's a two-tier system. It's not fair. And they know good and well that at the federal level, especially at the federal level, there are not going to be any charges brought forward if they can't make them stick. So there's nothing here. He's playing out to two misdemeanors of tax fraud and something about a handgun. The feds can do better than, if the feds could do better than that, they would. They would. And they say, oh, well, you know, it was the business meetings. There was influence peddling going on here. This is the Biden family mob and the business associates who, by all accounts, by their own testimony, was in the room. And it was just an illusion. Illusion of a Biden. Floating the name out there, Hunter, floating the name out there, hoping it would gain him some kind of advantage. Hoping it would give him powerful influence, the powers of persuasion in dealing with his business partners. That's all. No more, nothing less. By the business associates who were in the room at the time of the business dealings account. This is not us here at Soluble. This is not us here at Soluble. This is coming from the people who were in the room. So when can we move on? As I said, you had countless investigations on a number of Democratic officials leveled by Republican politicians. And shamefully, because the world is watching, the best that they can come up with to, you know, bring some kind of a charge or bring shame or try to smear enough to ruin from ever running for office again is a semen stain on a blue dress. This is shameful. We're better than this. We're a more intelligent country than this. Now, I say it all the time, to that 90-something plus percentile, you hold the power in your hands. You hold the power in your hands. There's nothing to the right that we can see right now where we have the powers of persuasion. We have seats at the table. We have negotiating power like we do in the Democratic Party. So when we hold that line, when we get our numbers out, rest assured, we can send the former president, you know, back to his country club and enjoying his everyday life of golf and dealing with his legal troubles. We can send him back once again. And we will. We just have to, you know, as I said, block out the noise, block out the static coming from the right. There's no there. There's nothing there. The country is steadily moving along. It may not be to where, you know, we all as a country think it should be. But, you know, this is two different candidates with two different ideals. Two different candidates with two different ideas. And your former president, fresh on the campaign trail this weekend, you know, he can't even look at the camera and tell you what he's going to do for you, the American people. It's scripted. His eyes are down. His head is down. Unlike here at Soluble, we're communicating with you, eye to eye, constantly eye contact with the camera. There's nothing that we're reading from here. We're giving it all to you. The facts in black and white. We told you there'd be investigations with zero legislation, and here we are. So, you know, we turn out, we rock the vote, and just like now, we have slowly begun to put America back on a continuing course of progress, prosperity for all, justice for all, equal opportunity. And that's what's going on with the two parties here. The Republicans have a strong dislike for Democrats because they are a party with one big tent, one big net spread over the whole American populace. Where by contrast, the Republicans, you know, they have their net spread tightly over Caucasians first, And then, if there's enough room under the net, a few so-called minorities, they can huddle up also. But we have to make sure that we get all Caucasians first and foremost under the net. And that's the difference between the two parties. This is not something that, is meant to stir up hate of any, kind of racial divide. It is what it is. The Democratic Party is for the whole of the American populace, whether you're born native in the country or whether you've immigrated here. They want you to have that fair shot, that fair chance to achieve a piece of the American dream. And the Republicans want to make it harder and harder for everyone who is not of the Caucasian race. It's just that plain and simple. And so they'll stop at no low. They'll stop at nothing to achieve it. As we've said, there was a time not too long ago where the children of elected officials were off limits. But I guess since, there's a change in dynamic, they can't make the case. They're having trouble finding voters. They're having trouble selling the message that, anything goes now. This is a party of desperados in desperation. Trump is the leader of the pack. You have the contenders that are running against him, who are way behind in the polls. Here just a couple months ago, everybody thought that, Ron DeSantis was that guy. Now, had any of them been more forcefully in calling the president out from the beginning, the numbers might look different. But they're suffering. They're victims of their own circumstance because they didn't call him out. Because they didn't call him out. It's too little too late for Chris Christie. Here you have Governor DeSantis, back when the former president was on the campaign trail running for office, he made it a point to read his children a bedtime story, The Art of the Deal. And so it's hard for him to be able to sell now to Republican voters that Trump is no good, when they just saw him reading a bedtime story to his own children called The Art of the Deal. So it's like, what's really going on here? And they don't stand a chance. None of them stand a chance because they didn't stand up to him early on. So what do? They won't fight for the American people. They'll seem to rally more and more, circle the wagons more and more around the former president. Here you have one of the president's opponents, Vivek Ramaswamy. He's running for the nomination, but yet he's on the campaign trail when he talks about the things that he will do if made the nominee, or if he gets to the White House. He's presenting a contract, a pledge of how he will pardon the former president and how he relieve the former president of all the legal activities swirling around it. It's insane. It's madness. So they'll never have the numbers that the former president has. And it's first and foremost because they were too spineless to stand up against him early on. They were too spineless to stand up against him early on. And we will, point it out each and every time. Now, the first debate is the 23rd of August, coming up soon. And as of right now, the main talking points in Republican circles is crooked Joe Biden and a crooked Hunter Biden. Nothing about policy. They'll make little jabs here about Bidenomics, how the Biden economy is bad for America, but it doesn't come out in the wash as being so. As I said, you have leading economic experts, saying that the economy is trending in the right direction. Jobs look good. Unemployment is low. There's good news at the pump, even though gas has went up some, over the last week. And so we always say there's work to be done. But in closing, to my fellow Americans, what will you do without democracy? And, we're asking you to let that be a major thought, listening to this broadcast and in closing this broadcast going forward the next couple of days. What is America without a functioning democracy? If you got money, if you have a nice home, where would we be without a functioning democracy? That is the question. Who is the most threat to that democracy? We have a party here that refuses to deal in truth, that doesn't stand down when they're wrong, they double down. They won't clean up their own house. But every day they're in the Democrats' house saying what needs to be cleaned up here and what needs to be cleaned up there. And you have the former president under indictment again, and he's the leading nominee. Now, it's a sad day and time for Republican voters that this is the only choice that they have. And they left us with only one choice: to throw as much weight as we can again behind the current president. Because we've seen it. There's nothing new here. There's nothing new here to see. It's all scripted. It's all scripted. And, if you really look at what the Republicans are doing right now, instead of legislating on behalf of the American people, it's really a twisted logic of, it would be fine if Hunter and Joe Biden were actually doing, underhanded things in their business dealings overseas, as long as he wasn't president. Because you didn't hear about these things, years ago. Why now, when the president is in office, or before he was elected to office, when he was running? Former President Trump brought it up in the debates about Hunter this and Hunter that. So by the Republicans' twisted logic, and think about this for my fellow Democrats and Republican voters also, by the Republican Party's twisted logic, it would be fine. Corruption, underhanded business dealings, under the table business dealings, or what have you, would be fine between Hunter and the current president, Biden, as long as he wasn't in office, or as long as he wasn't a threat to win office and take Republicans out of office. Then his corrupt business dealings would be fine. That's where we're at. So when you look at it from that twisted logic point of view, you have to understand that there's nothing really there. This is something that is just being conjured up. It's appropriately invented for the time. Appropriately invented for the moment where, the president is in office and we need to get him out. We can't get him on policy because he's doing good things for America. Inflation Reduction Act. He's doing great things for America. And so, we can't get him on policy. We can't beat him there. So let's find some skeleton in the closet that we can use to demonize him and make him look bad, and we can get him out of office. This is a desperate attempt. There's nothing there. The business associates have said there's nothing there. The foreign business dealers have said there's nothing there. But yet and still, the Republicans, with a slim majority in the House, fish on. And there's so much more we can be doing as a country to gain an advantage in this world, to help other nations in this world, to make life better for even better than it already is for the American people. There's so much more we can be doing right now. But leading up to the first debates for the Republican Party, 22 days away. 22 days away. What they want you to believe, the American voter, Republican, Democrat, and Independent, that Hunter Biden is a problem. It's a two-tier system. And there's something going on with a deep state that has to be looked into. And nothing can be further than the truth. So think about it. In closing, we want to leave you with it. We're going to re-emphasize it over and over again going into the 2024 election. Here we are as a country, 247 years in. Founded in genocide, made in slavery. Much bloodshed in the country, much treachery, much deceit. But we're still here. Democracy is held in the face of a illegitimate, ill-informed insurrection with a threat to overturn a righteous election. We're still here. And, the only way that we're going to remain is if more intelligent minds prevail and are able to see through the BS from the Republican Party. And just like us here at Soluble, make that request, make that demand that, they bring about a change in the way they're governing. This Confederate ideology makes us all look bad, whether we realize it or not, because it seems as if we can't get out of our own way. We're 247 years in, and we can't seem to get past the politics of even race right now. That's what a lot of this boils down to. That's what a lot of it boils down to. Who has the power in the country? When it shouldn't be about which race has the power and which race doesn't have the power. What it should be about is putting the best man for the job in the White House with a good, sound administration around it and working with the Congress to legislate on behalf of the American people to make our daily lives better, lowering prescription drug costs, putting intelligent minds out there to battle the opioid crisis at the same time, dealing with foreign policy, climate change, all the things that affect us today. That's what it should be about. Putting the best man for the job in the Oval Office and from day one begin to legislate on behalf of the American people, whether they voted for you or not. Democracy is not about choosing sides. Democracy is about coming together for a compromise. Now we need a 2/3 majority to get legislation passed in this country. 2/3 majority. So here we are. 22 days away from the first Republican debates. And it's going to be interesting to see what they have to say, what ideas they have for America. Not stuck on the former president's legal troubles or something that Hunter may or may not have done. We need real solid ideas. We need real policy goals, solutions that we can put into the form of legislation and bring onto the floor for a vote. We need it more than ever. And now is the opportune time. Now is a pivotal time. We're still a young nation. In comparison to some of the other nations that inhabit this planet as well as we do as Americans. And so it remains to be seen right now if, sadly and shockingly, if the former president is above the law or not. It remains to be seen. Does the former president love democracy? Or does he love himself? Does he love governing on behalf of the American people and occupying the Oval Office to make lives better for all the American people? Or is it for all the rich friends that he get to meet? What is it? Now, we're seeing the president say one thing, but we're seeing him do another. He's quick to get up on the podium and say, the country is a mess. Well, Mr. President, maybe the country is following the example of the leader. Does the former president expect the country to be on the up and up when he's on the down low corrupt, when he's doing underhanded things, when he's doing things to undermine the system of checks and balances, when he's doing things to undermine law and order right here in the country? Does he expect the country not to be a mess? when he's not leading by example, this is how out of touch and tone deaf the former president is. Because if I'm king for a day, if I'm president, and I can look and see that the country is a mess, then the first thing I would think that I need to do is self-reflect, self-examine, because I am what? The leader of said country. But the president doesn't think about this when he opens his mouth and says that the country is a mess. Maybe, Mr. Former President, just maybe, you have to straighten up and walk the straight and narrow, and the American people will follow suit and do the same thing. We'll follow suit and do the same thing. That's going to do it for our podcast tonight here at Soluble. We thank you for joining us. As always, we hope that this podcast has been informative, been eye-opening, able to shed light on things that are going on in Washington today. Now, you may say that, I have my job, I have my pension, and as long as I, got my job and my house, this and that, there, those people can do what they want to do. Okay, what happens when you don't have that? Or when those things that you do have are under threat of being taken away or lessened in value? Then what? Then you want to play a part in the process? It may be too late then. It may be too late then. So, to those who want to protect democracy, save democracy, and keep it flourishing for generations to come, this is an all hands on deck situation. Because the threat still looms. The MAGA threat still looms large. We'll spell it out, in days to come. As we observe what's going on, we'll bring it to you as we break it down and give it to you point blank, so that you can stay informed and therefore make an informed decision between now and 2024. We're giving it to you from the so-called left, and we're giving it to you from the so-called right. Two competing narratives here, including two different individuals. And, you decide. You decide. The Republicans are expecting you to stay dumber. They're expecting you to stay dumber. Stay dumber. We've had a number of investigations, different individuals. And what's the most has been produced out of it? Ask yourself that question. Ask yourself that question. And then, look at the latest, which is Hunter. The latest investigation. And what his business associate said today. And, we think that common sense will prevail, and the Americans at the end of the day, going into the 2024 elections, will make an intelligent decision on behalf of saving democracy. That's going to do it for us tonight here at Soluble. As always, we thank you for joining us. We welcome all different feedback. We welcome comment, any questions. And at the end of the day, as always, we're trying to solve here. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not for likes and retweets. We're going to call it, like we see it, balls and strikes, just like we see it down the middle, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. Because at the end of the day, our goal is to solve the current political climate that we're in now, to make it less partisan and more about compromise. So until the next time, we'd like to say good night, God bless, and stay alert, stay informed. Until we talk again, until we meet again, this is Soluble signing out. Thank you for joining us. Good night.